Detective Comics issue 1028 sees Detective Goddess arrive at a storage facility, telling his contact that he's making the deposit. As he opens the storage unit, he's confronted by someone who he knows is dead. The man dressed as a mounted police officer fires at the detective, telling Goddess he is dead as well. Later, Bruce Wayne attends the funeral of Detective Goddess, a cop he kept an open file on since the man was a beat cop and always was in the know and always on the edge of big drug busts. Drug busts where money was skimmed from, although nothing could ever stick to Goddess. Using his advanced earpiece, Bruce is able to listen in on the hushed whispers throughout the funeral, spotting Officer Nakano, a cop who was wounded in Joker's war, wondering what a straight-edge cop like him is doing there. Bruce overhears the mayor talk about him and how people think that Bruce Wayne is just trying to remain relevant. The mayor thanks Commissioner Bullock for his discretion on the funeral and for keeping the case small and contained. Bruce picks up on a group of cops discussing how Goddess got killed and how he confirmed his deposit. The funeral comes to an end and Bruce places some dirt in the grave, overhearing one of the officers tell Goddess's family that they will be taken care of. Later that night, Batman comes to the grave, using a new device here Mr. Terrific developed, and while not as good as Superman's X-ray vision, it will allow him to peer into the grave without digging it up. Inside, Batman finds a gunshot wound on the man's hand, as well as the fact that his head was severed from his spine, all of which was withheld from the public, but he understands why Bullock wanted to keep that out of it. Heading to the GCPD, Batman breaks into the evidence lockup, finding the bullet from Goddess's hand and learning it was from a .357 revolver, something only old school cops use. Knowing he needs to dig deeper, Batman takes off into the night. The next day in Yorkville Heights, the news reports on how people want to stop vigilante killings and ban masks altogether in Gotham. As the TV plays, the mysterious mounted officer sharpens his sword, returning it to his scabbard and leaving. Later, Judge Hurwitz hides his money under his floor, hearing a knock at the door and recognizing who the mounted officer is, calling him Holman, but it's too late as the man stabs him through the door, killing him. Later on, Batman finds the officer's head in his own fridge as Bullock asks why Batman is at the crime scene. Officer Varley says that Batman asks politely as the hero notes the judge's living situation has drastically changed. A detective notes that he got a divorce a year ago as Bullock isn't happy Batman is traipsing around his crime scenes since he catches flack from the men upstairs when it happens. Batman is glad to see that Bullock is back on as commissioner, noting how the judge's head was cut clean off in the same exact spot as Goddess's. Bullock demands Batman leave the crime scene, but the hero tells him to stop hiding any more details about the two murders and he needs to get in front of this and manage the media. Bullock demands Batman leave, but Bruce says that he's not going anywhere since 2 citizens in his city are dead within a week. Elsewhere, the 2 remaining cops talk with one another over the phone, with one saying that the other 2 have been killed and so far they don't need a math whiz to know that they are next, which is why he is heading out of town. Getting on his motorcycle, the man races out of Gotham, but is soon caught up to by the mounted officer, who cuts his head clean off. In the Gotham suburbs, Batman watches the remaining officer cooking for his family as his phone rings, scaring him. On the phone is the mysterious mounted officer, who tells him that the other members of his team are all dead, and he will be too unless he meets the man at the GCPD mounted unit stables in 1 hour and brings the DAT tapes with him. The man says that he doesn't have them, but the voice tells him that he has a nice family and he should mind his burgers since they are burning. An hour later, the officer arrives at the stables, finding the mounted officer waiting for him. The man knows that the officer on the horse cannot possibly be Jake Holman since he is dead, but the officer reveals that he is Steve Holman, Jake's son, revealing when his father found out the 4 trusted officials were stealing and selling drugs, Internal Affairs made him get closer to the men and pretend to work with them, but they never realized that the men had an Internal Affairs officer on their payroll who ratted out the man, and it forced the cops to make Jake turn over the recordings he made and then kill himself. On top of that, the cops planted drugs on Jake and made it look like he was a dirty cop. The officer knows all about this since he wrote Jake's suicide note, wondering what the shotgun Steve gave him is for. Steve says that the man doesn't get a quick and clean death like the others, and he's going to kill himself like how his father did, but not before he gives over the tapes. Getting the tapes, Steve plays them, hearing his father say sometimes one has to get in good necessary trouble to change things and make them right for his legacy of family service and for his son. The cop says that the tapes will exonerate his father, but Steve knows it won't bring him back since the cops murdered him. He demands the cop pick up the shotgun, but Batman strikes, having heard enough. He demands that the officer not touch the shotgun as he throws batarangs at Steve, Steve, stunning the other officer who grabs the shotgun. Steve takes off and Batman gives chase, getting his own horse. Steve refuses to stop until his father's name is cleared, racing into the streets and dodging traffic and jumping up into a train terminal, despite Batman telling him not to, since he's putting innocent lives in danger. Steve shoots at Batman, telling the hero to let him finish what he started. Batman can't let that happen, throwing a batarang and disarming the man before grappling him off the horse. Steve begs with Batman to vet the tapes in his bag and make sure the city learns his father was a hero, but Batman knows Jake's story was tragic, but he was willing to do what was right even if people didn't know. But what Steve did dishonored his legacy. Later on, Batman heads to the Gotham Times, giving a reporter the tapes to dig into as Steve is locked up, telling the death mask of his father that they finally did it as the other cop is threatened by the inmates he put away. Bruce meanwhile sees on the news that Christopher Nakano has begun his campaign for mayor, planning on ridding the city of masked and dangerous individuals once and for all. Detective Comics issue 1028 was a fun one-off story again, putting Batman's detective skills through their paces. I enjoyed Batman dealing with police corruption with a post-Joker War Gotham which is still on the verge of breaking down. We get little news reports of like people wanting to ban vigilantes and everything because of what happened in Joker War. Oh, nothing earth-shattering happened here. It was just great to have a classic detective story told by Peter Tomasi's tight writing and Nicholas Scott's lovely looking art. I do have to wonder though if the ending with Nakano making his mayoral run about the banning of masks and vigilantes was a teaser what could be happening in Future State, since Batman's portion of the Future State event has Gotham banning all vigilantes and the Bat family and leading to Bruce Wayne's death. I definitely feel like there may be some link there, and I'm looking forward to Tomasi following that thread later on down the line, hopefully. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10.